saw for the first time in my life. I paid a 3-day visit to Poland, which in itself is a story that I will be telling later this week. And there we have the result of Jewish intermarriage today. There are all kinds of people are surfacing in Poland, young singles who are the product of mixed marriages. They didn't even know that one of the parents was Jewish until one day somehow it came out, which means that in Polish society for many, many generations, these are people who were there and who survived through the Holocaust because they were not known to be Polish. This has been going on in Jewish communities for generations and generations. And it seems to me that there can be no answer to what is going on today than the Torah of Gilgulim. It has to be that all of the crazy situations that each and every one of us finds ourselves in chronically, and there are the things that the public knows about and the things that only each of us knows in his or her own heart about when we all go through the different tests and challenges and trials and pain and anguish and depression. It must have to do with Gilgul, because otherwise why would God do such a thing? It makes no sense. It must be that we've all been through shidduchim and zivugim, married life and this kind of before, and we have to go through many, many gilgulim in one lifetime in this world to somehow make a tikkun. And the whole question is, how do we make the tikkun? What are we supposed to do to make the tikkun? You know, everybody knows the story of the Roman woman who comes to Rabbi Yosef and she says to him, what has God been doing since the world was created in 6 days? And he says he's been making shidduchim, and she says, that's ridiculous, I can do that. She brings 1,000 male slaves and 1,000 female slaves, says, you go off with you, you're married to you, you're married to you, and she sends them all off. What's so hard about making shidduchim? The next morning one comes back with a black eye and one comes with a broken arm, and nobody can get on with each other, and they realize that the whole thing, she then realizes that it is a divine thing to make shidduchim. Well, if it's a divine thing to make shidduchim, then it's a divine thing not to make shidduchim. If it's a divine thing to make the shidduch, it's a divine thing not to make the shidduch. God does not send a shidduch. And I'm going to be addressing later on the worst case scenario, that there is no shidduch in this lifetime, and how are we to make sense of that, and what can we do to have a place and a part in God's courtyard. I want to leave that for a later part of tonight's address. But I think one thing we have to understand, that all this is about Gilgulim, and the basic flaw of our people is we've always been subjected to the same challenge of staying religious. Ever since we received the Torah, 40 days later, they went after the golden calf. Moses sent the spies, they were ready to go back to Egypt. Again and again, Korach this week, all these rebellions, and we have to accept that we are by nature rebellious. Here we are, the very title of tonight's talk is an expression of rebellion. Either I am going to get my shidduch or I'm going to leave. That's what we're saying now. That's what we say every single day. And it's not, believe me, it's not only before the shidduch, after shidduch too. I mean, every day this is enough. I mean, I'm leaving this house. I want to... And in order to put the point that I'd like to make tonight, I'd like to tell Rabbi Nachman's very famous mashal, his very famous story, which was the subject of an entire book that I wrote 20 years ago called Under the Table on How to Get Up, the story of the Turkey prince. A well-known story of the son of the king who went out of his mind. He believed that he was a turkey, and he felt compelled to strip off all of his clothes and sit under the table pecking at the crumbs and the bones. The reason why I wrote a whole book about this story is because this is the story of my life, and it seems to me that Rabbi Nachman in this story tells the story of many of the lives of very many of us, and I think there's very important wisdom for us to learn from this story. Here is the king's son who believes he's a turkey, and he throws off all his royal clothes and goes and sits under the table. Now that is rebellion. That is rebellion. This is not just a schizophrenic boy. The boy is a rebel. He doesn't want to be a king's son. Leave me alone with this long Friday night, Saturday services and these obligations, and I can't eat in this restaurant, and I can't go there, and I can't do entertainment properly, and I can't do what I want to do. This boy has thrown off all his royal clothes. He's thrown off Torah, mitzvahs, everything. He's out of it. And the king brings the doctors, he brings the Rosh Yeshiva, speaks to him about Emunah, about Torah, and it does absolutely nothing to the boy. Just leave me alone with your beards, and you have nothing to say to me. You're not talking my language, you're not communicating with me, you're not on the same wavelength. And that was what happened to me. I mean, I read Maimonides at the age of 15, it did nothing to me. It did absolutely nothing. It didn't engender any faith in me, whatever. None of the rabbis did it to me, and I've spoken to many people, many young people, ever since I became frum, who also want to get out of it. Who just there's one guy on the chat in Israel who calls himself, his nickname is Dati B'Chiloni Kofet. I don't know how many of you know what I just said. Somebody who's religious, who's trying to find not just a secular Jew, but one who is an atheist. He will only find it for that's who he's looking for. And this is the degree to which these trials push people into. So this is a issue that is shared by many of our brothers and sisters. And Reb Nachman tells this story after he tells us that all the doctors that the king, the boy's father, called were not able to help him. One day along comes a wise man, and the wise man says, I know how to cure your son. And what does the wise man do? He takes off all his clothes and he goes and sits next to the boy under the table. And they start getting chummy, and eventually the boy says to the wise man, well, who are you? So the wise man immediately turns the question back and he says, well, who are you? The boy says, I'm a turkey. So am I. I'm a turkey also, says the wise man. They sit, they get friendly again, and the wise man gives a signal. They put down 2 shirts under the table, and the wise man puts on a shirt, and the boy looks in with horror. What are you doing? How could you do that? You're a turkey. And he says, you know, you can be a turkey and also wear a shirt. So they sit there, the boy puts on a shirt, and they carry on sitting, they chatting, and the wise man gives a signal, and they put down 2 pairs of pants under the table, and the wise man puts on a pair of pants, and the prince says to him, what are you doing? You're a turkey. He says, no, you can be a turkey and you can wear pants. He has them send down regular food. He says you can eat regular food and stay being a turkey. You can sit up at the table and still be a turkey. And eventually the wise man cures the prince completely. And the one word of interpretation that Rabbi Nachman gave in the story says, this applies to the service of Hashem, that you do one thing at a time, and that is the way to bring yourself to perfection. We have to accept the 2 sides in us, the holy Jew, the Puntel Yid, the prince, the princess, and whether it's a turkey or a serpent or whatever is your alter ego, we have to accept that it's there. We have to accept the rebel in us. My favorite Rabbi Nachman teaching is the one where he says, you know, atheism is to God's glory. Why to God's glory? Because if people could understand with their minds what Hashem is, there'd be no great wisdom in it. It's the fact that God is so above the human intelligence that people can reasonably be atheists, and it sounds very coherent. That itself reflects glory on God, that God is totally beyond man's ability to